You know what I won't miss? People.
People aren't so bad. Not really. It's what the world does to them. I think there's a natural goodness born into us all. You can either cross that line into evil or not. And it's our life's work to stay on the right side of that line.
Lucy Gray!
When we think of well-crafted villains, President Snow stands out as one of the most ruthless yet fascinating figures in modern fiction. His complexity is evident throughout the main series, especially in his interactions with Katniss, where he comes across as a manipulative but practical leader, making decisions that are as evil as they are realistic. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and its film adaptation give us a deeper look into how his trauma from the war, the poverty he faced after his father's death, and the patriotic upbringing by his grandmother in a violent capital shaped this already manipulative young man into the person we know and hate in the main series. Although the movie was a welcome and engaging adaptation, it didn't fully capture Snow's vile inner monologues that the book allows readers to explore. The novel does an excellent job at illustrating how, under Gaul's guidance and the capital's inhumane treatment of the tributes, Snow gradually shuts down any trace of kindness and empathy, surrendering to apathy and cruelty. Through his relationship with Sejanus and Lucy Gray, we witness how Snow's mind, shaped by a corrupt environment and twisted mentors, spirals into darkness, disregarding the kindness and compassion that Tigris and Lucy Gray tried so hard to nurture in him.
You grew a heart in the districts.
No, not in the districts. In the Hunger Games.
Coriolanus Snow's evolution into the calculating yet pragmatic leader we see in the Hunger Games is deeply shaped by the trauma of war, poverty, and his grandmother's upbringing. Yet some of his darkness seems almost inherent, tied to the traits he shares with his father. Throughout the story, Snow's need for control and fear of vulnerability are evident. He remarks that since his father's death, he has never felt secure, plagued by a fear and a vulnerability that he had never been able to shake off.
It's up to us now to make him proud.
As a small child, he witnessed the horrors of war, most notably when he saw Nero Price, Persephone's father, cut off their maid's leg in desperation to feed his family. This experience was burned into his memory so deeply that he remained afraid of Persephone even years later. This despair wasn't limited to the Price family, however. Snow recounts seeing people drop dead from starvation, like the young maid, and becoming part of a gruesome food chain. Snow also seems to have extensive trauma related to the bombs and the bloodshed that he'd been privy to during the war. We see this trauma manifest itself during the rebel bombing of the arena, where Snow admits being absolutely petrified as the rubble falls on him, believing that he will die. He is so terrified that he lets his otherwise omnipresent mask fall as he begs Lucy Gray to come and help him.
Help me!
This trauma is further observed when Arachne is killed by her tribute Brandy at the zoo, as he feels like he is brought back in the midst of the war because of the wash of blood, the whiz of the bullets, and the screams of the crowd. Beyond the trauma brought on by the war, poverty is another thing that the Snows greatly struggle with.
Oh, did you find the potatoes? I boiled them for the starch. You should really eat something today.
Save them for Grandma.
Indeed, after his father's investment in nuclear weapons in District 13 fails, with the district being attacked and leveled by the capital, they lose their entire fortune. The book depicts Snow as struggling to come to terms with the poverty that he's been experiencing since the war first started.
No, thank you.
I saw you staring. Always thought there was plenty of food in the capital.
You know, one time during the war, I ate a whole jar of paste just to stop the pain in my stomach.
And how was it?
Tasty.
While waiting for Tigris, he is scavenging the kitchen for food only to find boiled cabbage, which he absolutely hates but forces himself to eat to stop his stomach from growling and keep up with appearances.
Hungry?
Cook served steak for breakfast. You had to throw half out.
Shame on you, Corio. Don't you know that they're starving in the districts?
Despite Tigris's attempts to show him kindness and compassion, encouraging him to be more like his mother than his father, Snow's fear of weakness drives him down a darker path where empathy is sacrificed for power. On one hand, Snow's grandmother instills a deep-seated hatred for the districts, reinforcing the capital's disdain for those living outside its opulence, qualifying them as barbaric and treating them like animals. This animosity is rooted in the grandmom's belief that the districts are uncivilized and responsible for the suffering of the capital. She reinforces this perception by claiming that there's always been something brutal about the districts, and that his own father used to say that those people only drank water because it didn't rain blood.
Outside this capital, they're savages. However they may smile, she will use you. You must use her.
Such harsh sentiments reveal the extent to which her hatred shapes Coriolanus' perception and beliefs.
Don't do that. We all know you like him.
I don't like him, Arachne. I tolerate him. His district.
Conversely, Tigris serves as a counterbalance to their grandmother's vitriol, offering Coriolanus a glimpse of empathy and kindness, showing him that it does not necessarily equate to weakness as he seems to believe.
Lucy Gray won't survive a minute inside that arena. So that means we have to make every second before then count. I'll get her to sing again.
I wouldn't sing a note for you if I was her.
unless I could trust you.
She's district, Tigris.
Don't discount her just because she's district, Corio. You might have more in common with her than you think.
While Snow was not close to his father, he absolutely adored his mother.
My mother, she used to smell like roses. She died in childbirth. I was going to have a little sister.
However, he comes to terms with the idea that he may be more like his father than his mother. Tigris recognizes this internal debate of his after he comes back from saving Sejanus from the arena and hearing Dr. Gaul's speech about how civilization, when threatened, leaves place to brutality.
What happened in there, that's humanity undressed. Fueled with the terror of becoming prey. See how quickly we become predator? See how quickly civilization disappears?
She tells him that though he wants to be like his dad, he does not have to be, since all his dad had was hate, and he does not have to choose this path.
Are you okay?
Killed one of the tributes.
It must have been awful.
It was, and it felt powerful.
I know you want to be like your father. What I remember the most about him was that in his eyes, it was just hate. People can be good. You can be good. You are good. Just believe in that.
In Tigris, Snow finds a rare empathetic influence that challenges the apathy instilled by their grandmother. The grandmam's influence is profound as Coriolanus internalizes her beliefs while Tigris provides him with a moral compass, encouraging him to be better than the hate that surrounds him. This is later taken from him as Tigris slowly realizes in the movies that he may be beyond saving after coming back from District 12, telling him that he looks just like his father, the same man she described as only knowing hate earlier on.
What do you think?
I think you look just like your father, Coriolanus.
Ultimately, the conflicting influences of his grandmother and Tigris shape Coriolanus Snow's psyche, creating a complex character who is aware that he can make the right choices and be good and moral, but decides to succumb to evil as it is the only way in his eyes through which he can obtain power which can grant him the sense of control and security he so missed since his father's demise. Corio's mistreatment of the districts later on into his presidency also stems from his being raised in the capital. His environment instills a deep-rooted apathy and disgust towards the districts through the capital's dehumanization of them.
What if I get a pathetic runt girl from one of the poor districts, like 8 or 12? They're just gonna die.
Your role is to turn these children into spectacles, Miss Crane, not survivors.
Before developing feelings for her, the reader can see that Coriolanus' view of Lucy Gray and the district in general is far from favorable, as he sees them as having killed his father.
Your father is dead, Coriolanus. It was a rebel, a trap out in the forest in 12.
Indeed, we see Snow accept Lucy Gray as being his tribute, but coming to terms with the fact that she's still from the districts, meaning that she was a second-class citizen, human but bestial, smart perhaps but not evolved. This is also why he tries so hard to rationalize his feelings for a lowly district girl by trying to convince the capital, as well as himself mostly, that Lucy Gray is not really from the district, that she was an exception, that she was covey, closer to the capital than the districts, otherwise how else would she adapt so well to the capital and make him feel the way he does after their initial kiss?
Who are you, Lucy from District 12?
Oh, it's Lucy Gray, and I'm not actually from 12. No, my people are covey.
Coriolanus' hate for the district stems from the capital's dehumanization of them. When Snow goes to find Lucy Gray at the train station, he sees that they are chained and transported in dirty trains designed not for passengers but for cargo. This cruelty is further displayed in the way the tributes are thrown into the zoo like caged animals for the capital's citizens to ogle and throw food at.
So come down to the zoo and see these tributes before it's too late, and I mean too late.
We see their mistreatment amplify after the rebels' bombing of the arena as the capital's kids, such as Coriolanus, are rushed to the hospital to tend to their injuries, while the district children, such as Lucy Gray, are pinned to the ground and looked after by a veterinarian. The most gruesome display of the capital's cruelty, however, is their exhibition of Marcus and Brandy's bodies. While Brandy's bloodied body is paraded at Arachne's funeral to show the tributes what happens when you hurt one of the mentors, Marcus's torment simply seems to be too much even for Coriolanus, who wonders why a boy who only attempted to run away should be battered and displayed in such a way. This goes to show us the main difference between Snow and his mentor Volumnia Gaul, who, like Snow, is not above killing children, but is definitely wasteful.
I wanted to tell you how very sorry I am about your sister. So wasteful, so unnecessary.
You released those parachutes.
We both know I'm not above killing children, but I'm not wasteful. I take life for specific reasons.
Though some might disagree, Volumnia Gaul could be considered another mother figure in Coriolanus' life, even though he hates her and fears her. As mentioned in Deborah the Explorer's video, the link between these two characters begins with their names. Indeed, Coriolanus' name comes from a Shakespearean tragedy of the same name and follows the story of a Roman general, Caius Marcius Coriolanus, whose contempt for the lower classes and manipulation by his own mother Volumnia leads to his demise. Similarly, Dr. Volumnia Gaul shapes Coriolanus' leadership style and cements this nascent cruelty into his actions, leading him to completely forsake empathy and embrace pragmatism and apathy.
Antonius, what did we celebrate?
The death of the Mockingjay, sir.
No, Minister Antonius. I'm afraid that is not what we were toasting at all. If the Mockingjay were gone, the rebels would already be using her as a martyr. So, what did we toast tonight, Minister Antonius? We toasted a glorious era coming to its bitter end.
She is responsible for Snow finally attaining the power and control he's always craved, which ends up leading to his death in Mockingjay, similar to his Shakespearean namesake. One of the main reasons why she sends Coriolanus away to be a peacekeeper in District 12 is because she wants him to grasp the reason why the districts must be controlled. One of the main lessons Gaul teaches Snow is that of control, which drives him further into his obsessive need to gain power and his willingness to manipulate his way to the top. Before he is sent to 12, Gaul asks him to explain how to deal with an endless war, to which Snow answers that it must be controlled through something like the games and the peacekeepers. Indeed, Snow recognizes that the law required enforcement, and that was where control came in. Without control to enforce the contract, chaos reigned. According to Gaul's lesson, the power that controlled had to be greater than the people, otherwise they would challenge it, alluding to the capital being the only entity capable of exercising such control over the districts. Reading this was quite interesting because it reminded me once again of my political science classes. The specific lesson of Gaul stems from Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan, which outlines the need for there to be an entity, a Leviathan, to put man with a big M in awe and refrain them from their violent impulses to maintain order. Here the capital is the Leviathan, responsible to keep man, here the districts, in check. Her lessons with Coriolanus constantly reinforce the idea that war and chaos can only be controlled through power, something Snow clearly remembers throughout his life. Indeed, during his presidency, Snow orders his peacekeepers to execute those disobeying them, such as the people during Katniss and Peeta's victory tour, who held up their fingers to show solidarity with the rebellion and the Mockingjay. Though he could choose to imprison them and punish them in a less radical way than death, Snow, influenced by Gaul's brutality, feels that he must eliminate the threat rather than let it fester and become a larger problem later on. He, however, seems to be more level-headed than Gaul, as rather than eliminate Katniss directly after the Bears debacle, he tries to co-opt her influence to use it to steer the district into obedience.
Why don't you just kill me now?
I don't want to kill you. I want us to be friends. But if not friends, then allies. When you and Peeta are on tour, you need to be grateful. But above all, you need to be madly prepared to end it all in love. You think you can manage that?
Yes.
Yes, what?
I'll convince them.
Though it fails, it demonstrates that he is indeed a cruel, yet still pragmatic and level-headed leader. Up until Mockingjay, President Snow is not wasteful, and he does what he believes to be the best to maintain his system, even though it is far from being moral in most cases. He loses himself, however, when chaos begins to befall Panem, when the districts finally rebel against him, making him feel like the control he so craved and adored was finally slipping through his fingers, pushing him to more radical decisions, such as the bombing of the hospital in District 8.
Kill the wounded.
Sir.
Any association with the Mockingjay symbol is forbidden. Everyone inside that hospital has committed treason.
Coriolanus' fear of Dr. Gaul is also deeply rooted in his belief that he might fall under her control, much like the mutts she engineers. This fear of being controlled by the capital, and particularly Gaul, manifests itself when he is forced to go into the arena to retrieve Sejanus.
I need someone to get him out right now. I will not have these rebels make a further mockery of my games. Anyone sees us lose control of this arena, it might as well be sounding a horn to the districts to revolt.
For Dr. Gaul, one must understand humanity's essence and hidden savageness to be able to control it.
If you want to protect people, to govern them like your father, then it's essential you accept what human beings are and what it takes to control them.
The games reflect the world as Gaul and Snow see it, an arena where only the strong survive and control is the key to victory.
I used to think that the Hunger Games were punishment for the districts. Now I know the whole world is an arena, and we need the Hunger Games to remind us all who we truly are.
And who are you, do you determine?
The victor.
Gaul, who once manipulated him into acts of cruelty, is now a voice in his head, reinforcing his belief that power, control, and manipulation are the only ways to govern. But like the Roman general Coriolanus, Snow's obsession with control instilled by his mother figure ultimately leads to his downfall. We see from the very beginning that Snow cares a lot about how he is perceived by others. Indeed, both the book and the movie open with him pacing while waiting for his cousin to come back with his mended shirt. When she finally comes back with his shirt, Snow sees that she's added tesserae as buttons.
The tesserae buttons I made
From the bathroom tile. Really?
Which he truly appreciates but later pretends not to notice in front of the academy students to appear richer than he truly is.
That's a snazzy shirt. What are those buttons? Tesserae?
Huh. That's why they remind me of the maid's bathroom.
These tesserae buttons were not only suggesting that his family was still fortunate enough to have a maid's bathroom, but also serves as an Easter egg to the tesserae food rationing system that we were introduced to in the Hunger Games, where Gail and Katniss, in a somewhat more dire financial situation than the Snows, would volunteer their names extra times out of necessity to receive rations of flour and oil to survive.
How many times did your name in today?
42. Guess the odds aren't exactly in my favor.
He also makes sure to eat the boiled cabbage he hates so much to stop his stomach from growling and embarrassing him in front of the other mentors, as well as stopping him from eating too much to not look too needy. This was a really interesting scene to me because it reminded me of the Capitol Party, where you would see them drinking a bunch of drinks in order to throw up so that they can eat even more, even though a few years before that he was unable to afford something other than cabbage.
Here.
What's this?
It's for when you're full.
It makes you sick, so you can go on eating.
How else could you taste everything?
One of the most telling instances of Snow's ability to put up his mask and keep up with his appearances can be observed during Arachne's death and her funeral. Though he is momentarily stunned by the blood and the peacekeepers shooting at Arachne's tribute, he quickly comes out of his stupor thanks to Lucy Gray, who urges him to help Arachne. Though in the movies it may not have been portrayed as such, the book clearly denotes the selfish reasoning behind his action. Indeed, seeing that the cameras are there and motivated to keep up appearances for him and bring good publicity for Lucy Gray so that they can win the games, Snow rushes to Arachne's side to quote-unquote help her. Luckily for him, the cameras had only recorded his attempt to save her and not his initial hesitation and terror because, as he states, his terror was a private thing not meant for public display. At her funeral, he spends most of it criticizing its opulence, holding that she did not deserve to be honored as such, while also accepting the role of hero and chief mourner. In the later movies and books, we see that this need to control how others perceive him is no longer only depicted in his appearance, but also in his words. Snow is a very realistic leader who is very cautious about showing a strong front to his citizens and his opponents to stop them from attempting a coup or a revolution. We especially see it in Mockingjay when he is preparing his address to Panem following some of the rebels' attack, making Egeria, his Minister of Interior, change the word rebel to radicals as to not give the enemy the impression that their attack truly had any impact on the capital.
Egeria, you need to fix these lines. I won't say rebels. These are senseless acts of defiance. I won't legitimize them.
We'll call them criminals. Radicals.
In the past weeks, you have heard of sporadic violence following the actions of a few radicals in the Quarter Quell.
It is also observed when he is listening to Coin's address after Katniss is presumably killed in the capital, though he's quite sassy about it.
Not a thinker, not a leader, simply a face plucked from the masses.
I have interrupted a broadcast from your president in which he attempted to defame a brave young woman. A face picked from the masses, he called her.
Plucked.
Snow's mask does slip on multiple occasions when he feels his life is in danger, proving Gaul's lessons about human nature's proclivity towards violence. It first happens when he kills Bobbin in the arena, but it is actually last observed when he poisons Dean Highbottom. As for his poisoning of Dean Highbottom, it happens not only because of the Dean's hatred for Coriolanus, but because he is one of the few, along with Lucy Gray, Sejanus, and Dr. Gaul, who are able to see Snow as who he truly is. Though Sejanus is kind-hearted and quite easily manipulated by Snow, he does mention to him that he knows how observant Coriolanus truly is, stating that he was watching him watch other people, pretending he wasn't, and choosing the moments he weighed in so carefully. Similarly, Highbottom sees right through Coriolanus, being used to it with Snow's father, Crassus Snow. Indeed, Highbottom is one of the rare people who is not duped by his manipulation, and even calls him out as he did at Arachne's funeral, making Snow understand that he doubted his grief for the girl, and tells him not to be late for lunch as there would be pie, alluding to the fact that he knows about the Snow's dire financial situation. This also happens when Dean Highbottom calls him out for not having enough money for the university's tuition, mocking his makeshift shirt and his too tight shoes, trying to hold it together, stating that he does the Snows even have a pot to piss in.
Look at you, your makeshift shirt and your too tight shoes, trying desperately to fit in, when I know the Snows don't have a pot to piss in.
Dean Highbottom represents a danger to Snow's performance, which is why he gets rid of him at the end of the story, to make sure that no one can discredit him going forward. All those who remotely saw through Coriolanus seem to vanish: Sejanus, Lucy Gray, and Highbottom. This is also probably one of the reasons why he does what he does to Tigris later on in the series. It would not be surprising to me if he does the same thing to Dr. Gaul, as above all the others, she is the one who knows this cruel side of him the most. Even though both Snow and Gaul seem to agree that when put back in a state of nature, humans revert to a primitive need for violence to protect themselves, as seen with Coriolanus in the arena with Bobbin for instance, this is not truly the case for everyone. Indeed, we see all throughout this series that empathy can also emerge from these situations, and that the head game maker and her mentee decided to overlook these instances or simply did not register them as being displays of compassion, as they both lack this ability to care for other human beings. Indeed, unlike Gaul and Snow, many characters in the franchise chose to stay on the right side of the line and be good rather than cross into evil. Some of the few examples include how Reaper shows mercy to the other tributes by covering their bodies so that they are no longer entertainment for the capital. It is also seen when Lamina kills Marcus for mercy. It is seen all throughout Sejanus' character as he stands up for what he believes is right by confronting Gaul in the capital when he sees Marcus displayed in the arena, for instance.
The capital is supposed to be everyone's government now. It is supposed to protect all of us. I don't see how making children fight each other to the death is protecting anyone.
It is also seen when Lucy Gray is reassuring Jessup while he is dying, which is very similar to how Katniss is singing to Rue to reassure her in her death. It is also seen in one of the most beautiful scenes, in my opinion, in Catching Fire, when Peeta decides to help the morphling that saved him by showing her the beautiful colors in the sky so that she is not panicking in death.
Look at that. It's incredible, isn't it? All those colors. Don't worry about anything else. I'll be right here with you.
Compassion can and does win all throughout the franchise, even if Snow decides to completely overlook it, blinded by his own self-importance and evil.
Look at you, heir to the Plinth fortune, nothing in your way.
Snow lands on top.
Speaking of Snow's disdain of the districts and their people, this is especially evident in his treatment of the Plinth family. He resents Sejanus because he sees him as taking away something that should be his, the money and the power that his father's fortune provides him.
Well, no, I'm not going to ruin my father's big day. No one here actually likes him, but they do love his money.
This is especially the case because, similarly to Coriolanus' own father, Sejanus' father's fortune came from his investment in ammunition, while the Snow's fortune disappeared along with District 13. The superiority complex comes from the belief that though the Snows are poor and on the verge of losing their apartment, they are inherently superior to the Plinths because of their pedigree, according to Snow. He sees Sejanus as being lesser than him simply because he is district.
Boy goes to Sejanus Plinth.
You got the pick of the litter. You forget. I'm part of that litter.
Snow, despite all the things that the Plinths do for him, never ceases to see them as district scum, as something to be ridiculed and mocked. He does it with Ma, claiming that no matter how hard her and her family tried, they would never truly be one of them because, as Snow states, one could put a turnip in a ball gown and it would still beg to be mashed.
Can't buy class. Did you see his mother's outfit?
Dress a turnip in a ball gown, it'll still beg to be mashed.
Even at the end of the book, when Coriolanus saltburns his way into the Plinth family and becomes their heir, he makes it a point to remind the reader that though he calls Sejanus' mom Ma and gets along with Mr. Plinth, he can't forget that they are still district. Indeed, he says that they, Snow and Mr. Plinth, were surprisingly compatible. At times, he would almost forget old Plinth was district. Almost. Even when Sejanus is alive, Snow's hypocrisy was quite apparent in his thoughts, though he did a good job at concealing it for the public eye. Indeed, Coriolanus would often think about how irritated he was to be associated with Sejanus and to be considered his friend. After Ma reveals to Snow that Sejanus is his only friend, he has nothing better to think than how sad it is to have no friend. He believes that being associated with Sejanus, a district boy, would tarnish his image and put him in more trouble, such as the arena debacle. Sejanus' impulsivity and compassion somewhat terrify Snow because they are unpredictable and thus impossible for Coriolanus to control. He is, however, eager to claim Sejanus as his friend and even his brother when it is convenient for him. Following their escape from the arena, Snow decides to go to the Plinths in the hope of being thanked. Not only does he mock Ma for serving him a pie that he completely devours in the kitchen, because who but a Plinth would serve anyone in their kitchen, he qualifies her souvenirs from District 2 as pitiful before meeting Mr. Plinth with the hope, or rather the expectation, of being paid by him for saving his troublesome son from the arena, qualifying Sejanus as his friend. This is not the only time where Snow openly mocks the Plinth's traditions, as he does it when Ma explains to him why Sejanus spreads breadcrumbs on Marcus's body as a stand-off for their deceased in District 2.
Breadcrumbs. I believe sustenance for a fallen comrade on his final journey, a District 2 superstition.
To which Snow reacts internally, of course, by saying, if you ever needed proof of the district's backwardness, there you had it. Primitive people with their primitive customs. As if putting children in an arena to fight to the death was not primitive. Sejanus also miraculously becomes his friend when he joins him in District 12. Indeed, we see Snow hugging Sejanus as, ironically, the district boy from 2 reminds him of the capital and the life he was forced to leave behind. Finally, after Sejanus is hanged and Snow is called to the commander's office, he describes Sejanus as being more like a brother than a friend to make his sacrifice seem more grand than it truly is.
We're brothers? Brothers. So whatever you've done, I swear I will keep you safe.
Though he is vile throughout the book, my discomfort diving into his thoughts was at the highest whenever he spoke of Lucy Gray. Though throughout the games, it is clear that even the kindness he shows to Lucy Gray is a result of his calculations and desire to win the games and the Plinth Prize, it is especially clear at the very beginning of the book and the movie. Once Sejanus begs him to exchange Lucy Gray with Marcus, Snow thinks it over for a while before refusing. Before declining, he remarks that Lucy Gray is leaning against the bars like a trapped animal. In the shadowy light, her color, her specialness, had faded, making her just another drab, bruised creature, showing the reader that he has internalized the capital's dehumanization of the tributes. This refusal does not come because he is attached to her, but because though he does not believe she stands a chance at becoming a victor, winning with Lucy Gray was more of a challenge and thus more rewarding than winning with Marcus. Moreover, he revels in the fact that he finally has something that Sejanus, whom he considers as having usurped his position, his inheritance, his clothes, his candy, his sandwiches, and the privileges due as Snow, has and can buy from him. Not only does he believe that Lucy Gray is his, he believes that her success reflected back on him, making it his success because he is her mentor. And he is not completely wrong about this. In the movie, when Lucy Gray wins, it is announced that Coriolanus Snow is the winner of the 10th annual Hunger Games, though she was the one fighting for her life in the arena.
Coriolanus Snow is the winner of the 10th annual Hunger Games!
Meanwhile, in the books, when only Lucy Gray and Reaper are left, he states that he'd done it, she'd made it into the final two, putting his success before her own, even though she is the one who did most of the work and incurred most of the trauma from this experience.
Sorry, I still got one foot in the arena.
He even daydreams about what would happen after they win the Hunger Games. A daydream of Lucy Gray winning, leaving the arena, and coming to live with him in the Snow's penthouse, because the capital would agree to let her stay, and well, he hadn't worked out all of the details, but the point was, he got to keep her, safe and close at hand, admired and admiring, and entirely, unequivocally his.
Prize the girl. How convenient you don't have to choose between them.
In his delusional state, he assumes that Lucy Gray must certainly abandon her entire life in District 12, her cousins, her love of freedom, all for his sake. He does not even allow himself to venture into why Lucy Gray would not want to stay in a place where she was tormented and thrown into an arena to die. Even during her performance at her interview, he notes how she is wearing a similar rosebud as his as a reminder of who Lucy Gray belonged to. This possessiveness becomes very apparent and surprisingly more toxic than before when he hears her singing during her interview a song that is clearly about her ex-lover Billy Tope, as she was his girl, his love, his Lucy Gray. Though this might fly on book talk, here it is quite alarming as his delusions are also backed by the Capitol, who validate him by telling him that she is indeed his.
The Runt Girl, District 12. She belongs to Coriolanus Snow.
As Snow states, even if Lucy Gray was confused on the issue, it was a given in the Capitol that Lucy Gray belonged to him, as if she's had no life before her name was called out in the reaping, stripping her of her identity outside of Coriolanus Snow. Pluribus also refers to her as his girl and mentions to him that he would love to have her at his nightclub as a performer, the same nightclub where he would be willing to sell his pretties. This is not only disturbing because, as a woman, to be reduced as merely as an object to be traded at a man's will is extremely horrifying and dehumanizing. It also goes to explain in part Snow's breakdown at the end of the book, when he realizes that Lucy Gray not only does not trust him anymore, but that she is meant to be free and wants to be free, something he is unable to accept, in part contributing to him haunting her.
Lucy Gray, where are you?
I find his rationalizing of going after Lucy Gray to be the most chilling, however. While he was quite satisfied to see her poison the other tributes in the arena, as it represented getting him closer to his goal and their victory, he does a complete 180 when trying to convince himself that she is a bad person, thus it is best for him to get rid of her in the forest. Indeed, he talks about her poisoning Wolvie as a cold-blooded move, how her attacking Treach was calculated, and even doubts whether her killing of Reaper was a mercy kill. To him, Lucy Gray was no longer his girl, his lover, made of sugar. She was a victor capable of ruining his plans of going back to the capital. Other than Tigris, Lucy Gray is the last person in Snow's life that pushed him to show compassion, and that humans have the option to be good if they wanted to be. This is best demonstrated, in my opinion, with what Snow is left after returning to the base following their altercation. In the movie, the scarf he gives Lucy Gray is assumed to be his mother's.
It was my mother's. I'd like for you to have it.
Still smells like roses. Thank you. Take good care of it, I promise.
Once she tricks him by putting it over the snake so he can get bit, Snow tries to smell the scarf, hoping to get his mother's smell on it, but none of that is left. The only thing he is left with in the book is his father's compass and his mother's compact, now empty of her scent. His mother's essence, which he tried for so long to keep alive through her scent, is no more, and he truly becomes his father's son. In my opinion, until the very end, there is something salvageable when it comes to Snow, until that moment with the scarf where all possibility of compassion and kindness evaporate along with his mom's scent. By the end of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Snow tries his best to forget about Lucy Gray. He feels relieved that Gaul erased all but one copy of the 10th annual Hunger Games, believing that it would help the capital and the districts forget about her. He even vows never to fall in love again, likely choosing to marry someone like Livia Cardew, whom he despises, to avoid the vulnerability he felt when loving Lucy Gray. However, even though the capital and the districts seem to have forgotten about Lucy Gray, her memory lingers, haunting Snow like the verses in her ballad.
Yet some maintain that to this day she is a living child, that you may see sweet Lucy Gray on the lonesome wild.
Her legacy lives on not just in Katniss and her songs,
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man, they say murder's 3,
but also in the changes Snow implements, such as appointing capital representatives like Effie to prevent the rigging of the reaping, as happened with Lucy Gray.
Lucy Gray Baird.
Sing your way out of this one, Lucy Gray.
Even though he chooses to cross the line into evil in order to gain control and power by becoming president at a mere 24 years old, he is not truly the victor. Lucy Gray is. She is the winner of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. While Snow loses all that he strived for at the hands of those he hated the most, Lucy Gray is free at last, whether it be in the north or in death.